The third victim was a paranormal type. You know, the sort of person who decided to make their own ghost hunting team after watching any of those shows out there, Anna said, as we walked into the office, but she hadn't been able to sleep last night, so I guess she'd started going through Victim 3's files. So what's your point? I asked. Sleeping on her couch every night was making me cranky, but thankfully, all the weird things had all but stopped happening, and the paranoia and fear was dying down too. I could probably move back in my own place soon. So, I don't know. Hey, where's John? We walked into our office, boxes and coffees in hand. We sat down at our desks and sipped our coffees for a few minutes before diving into this god-awful case once more. Before we could get too into our missing intern, one of the forensic scientists came in the room with an envelope. "Here's the DNA samples back, guys," he said. We'd sent him the samples when we were working on the first victim. The CSI team grabbed blood samples from the candles that he'd blown out in the first murder. And? Get a match? Not even close. Not even human. I did every test that I could think of 1,000,000 times. It's just not human. Humans have 46 chromosomes, right? This is 58. I have no idea what it could be. Anna and I looked at each other. "Weird," she said. "Thanks, Max." He put the envelope with the DNA test results on my desk and left. "Anyway," I said, "I don't know. I think someone said he called in sick or something. John did look a little under the weather yesterday." Anna nodded and agreed. "Hopefully he gets back soon," she said. Anna and I went back to the pictures of the third crime scene. It was all the same. Blood, guts, unbelievable gore. I still wasn't used to it, though. It was all more grotesque and inhumane than I thought ever possible. I got to a picture of her head. There was a slim, white stick-looking item sticking out of her skull. Her head had dried blood all over it. Her eyes sat there open and unseeing. Well, one of them, at least. Like a porcelain doll, watching you as you sleep. From her mouth, blood ran down her cheeks and onto the ground. Her head sat in a pool of her own blood, but the bone-appearing item stuck in her head was pristine. Pure, unsettling white. I showed it to Anna. "I think it's in the box," she said, pointing to the stick. "Forensics determined that it was a bone." I shuddered. Anna dug through the box and took the bone out. I took the bag from her hand and looked at it. Forensics is always careful to not disturb the way the evidence was found. And even with that care, it was disturbingly white. "Let's just watch the video and get it over with," I said. "It can't be that bad," Anna said. "We've seen 2 of the most brutal and horrifying murders already, and this victim has most of her body parts still intact, unlike the first 2. I guess so. I just don't want to have to look at pictures of dead people anymore. Had enough for 1 year," I said, exhausted. And before she pushed play on the video player, we just sat there. I guess we were preparing ourselves, even if we'd already seen it all. It was then our boss came in, urging us to finish the case. We sucked up, got him out of the room, and Anne pushed play. The video started off in what looks like a bedroom. The camera was handheld. The victim sounded excited. She had a chipper light voice and the camera was moving around rapidly. We heard a bunch of clicks and snaps and sounds of clothes rustling. We figured that she was getting something together or putting something on. Then all of a sudden the camera swung up and we could see her hands grabbing different electronic devices. "Okay, I'm all set. I have a camera on my shoulder mount. I have my EVP camcorder, my infrared scanner, many other pieces of equipment for my line of work. she said while looking into a smaller camera. We would watch that tape, but this was the only tape in the evidence box. It's 9:14 p.m. here in Seattle, Washington. It's an unofficial SPA investigation. I say unofficial because no one else in my team is here and I'm off the clock. I'm in my house, all by myself, with my little corgi puppy, Samson. She was still getting herself ready and giving us useless information about her house and her equipment she was using. SPA stood for Seattle Paranormal Association, and it turns out that she was the co-founder of it. We decided to fast forward a little bit until we saw her go into the door of her bedroom and open it up. Okay, all you ghost hunt fans out there, just a few minutes ago I was hearing strange thumps and what sounded like someone talking. I could hear the voice, but I just couldn't make out what the person was trying to say. I hoped to capture something on my equipment and share it with you guys. She walked down the hall until she came to her living room. Right upon entering the living room, to her right was a reclining chair, and straight ahead was a couch. She stopped in her tracks. It just got really cold. Perhaps this is a good place to do an EVP recording. I'll just take a little walk around the rest of my house first so that I can know where to go after this. Unless this is the only cold one. She walked throughout her house. Only the living room seemed cold to her. She also mentioned the living room was where the thumps sounded, like they were coming from. Okay. Check the rest of the house. It all checked out fine, she said. Whoa. What's that? My window curtain just moved. She walked over to the window and used some weird device towards it. Turns out it was some sort of EMF detector. It's something to do with shifts in magnetic fields. A shift is supposed to mean that there's a paranormal presence nearby. She moved the curtains. All three of her windows were open. Okay. I didn't leave any of these open earlier, she claimed. It's weird. She shut them, turned off the light in her patio. She started walking towards the hallway, but just as she reached the hall, there was a very loud crash coming from behind her in the kitchen. She turned around and just stood there. She pulled out a flashlight, shined it across the room. Damn it! That was the plate my mother gave me for Christmas. I'm not going to put my EVP recorder and see if we can get anything on tape. The little device started to beep loudly, like something was there. She pointed her camera in different directions and started to breathe heavier. The little device started to beep loudly like something. It just got colder. Even colder than before. I'm going to do an EVP now. She takes out another device and starts down the hall. Is anybody there? It was quiet for a couple minutes. Are there any spirits here who want to make contact? She said louder. No. The voice replied. No. My arm itches. It just started getting all tingly with a slight burning feeling, she said, directing it towards the camera, most likely for her viewers. Did someone just touch my arm? Did someone just touch my arm? I'm very pleased that you could feel that. A booming, menacing voice said from somewhere in the room. The victim turned around as fast as she could, and the room was dark, adding to the spooky effect for her ghost hunt archives, so we could barely make out what was talking, but Anna and I both knew who was there. The odd thing was that we were not listening to the EVP recorder while watching this video. We could hear Stitch talk through the video camera. At least now we know more about this thing. We now know that he's very real, not a ghost or a demon or anything else supernatural. Were you the entity that opened my window and made the thumping sounds? She asked in a worried voice.
That itch that you feel. It's rather interesting. You would feel an itch.
Stitch said. Why? She asked.
That's the part of your body I was looking at. I wish to eat it.
All of a sudden, as loud as I've ever heard someone yell in my life, loud enough to knock the victim back on her heels, Stitch said,
"And I intend to!"
Who are you? The woman asked. Her voice shaking.
I am known as Buell of the Netherlands.
Carnifex in Latin. Pove in Finnish.
I have many names. I have killed many people,
at least 10 per country.
You will be my third here. I am your worst nightmare, man. I would run.
As he was talking, the woman took something out of her pocket. It was later found to be holy water, and she opened the bottle slowly and tossed some of it in the direction of Stitch. Stitch laughed. The woman got up off the ground, turned the light on, started backing up the front door. Started backing up in the direction of the front door. We saw the holy water had melted some of Stitch's skin into the shape of a cross. It was burning into his skin like he'd been freshly branded. He was red like you'd expect a burn to be and encrusting. Other than the melting flesh, it didn't seem to affect him. While the woman was backing away, she saw Stitch swinging his chains after her. They wrapped around her arms and tore her skin. The crunching sound was disgusting as her arms were torn out of their sockets and the skin was torn off. The camera landed on the ground. We heard the chains clanging and the woman screaming, and then we saw her. Her arms were gone. Blood was pouring everywhere. We could see her shoulder blades sticking out from the broken, bloody flesh. The woman screamed and screamed while Stitch laughed and laughed, getting slowly louder, like he always did. As she was lying on the ground, Stitch towered over her. She tried to crawl away, but grabbed a piece of the previously broken dish and tried to use it as a weapon. She stabbed it into the first place that she could get, his arm, but it just went through him. Chunks of blood and guts came out of the other side of his arm, dripping and plopping onto the ground. It was gorier than I thought possible. His blood was dark and crusty, rotting. As it oozed out of his arm, he laughed. Got some of the blood on his fingers with those awful dirty nails and shoved the blood to the woman's mouth. "You can't hurt me," he chuckled. As if to prove his invincibility, he shoved his hand into his chest and ripped out one of his ribs and the bone he'd found in the evidence box that we assumed. The woman screamed in terror. "Why are you haunting me?" she asked.
"I'm not haunting you. I'm going to kill you. Chew you to bits, use your flesh to complete mine," Stitch responded.
"You're a ghost. Demon?" she asked. Her voice was shaking.
No. I'm real. I'm the one who makes people scared.
Stitch started to say.
"I don't hide under beds or in closets. I watch you. I like to see my victims' faces when I study them."
He paused and looked at her.
Then he smiled. "You're scared. I can smell it. I can taste it so clearly."
He stroked the spot her arm used to be and licked the blood off his fingers. She tried to escape again, but Stitch shoved his fingers into her eyes and held her head like a bowling ball. She kept screaming. Stitch laughed louder than she screamed, and he took his fingers out of her eye sockets and took his torn-out rib and stabbed it into her skull. Her head fell to the ground. Adding insult to injury, Stitch shoved his hand into her chest now and ripped her heart out and ate it. Then he stood up, grabbed her torn-off arm,
sticks her fingers into his mouth, and bites them off.
The sound of bones crunching rang through my ears.
I could hear Anna shuddering next to me. But Stitch wasn't done. He took the fingers out of his mouth, stuck them into the woman's mouth.
He left, leaving the woman on the floor.
Her head was rolling to the side. What was left of her eyes drooped to the ground. There was blood everywhere, soaking her carpet, dyeing into her hair, onto her skin. Her fingers were sticking out of her mouth. Her nails were broken from the struggle.
I looked over to Anna, and she looked like she was crying.
"I'm going home," she said.
She stood up and left the room quickly. I couldn't blame her. If I could escape this case, I would. I guess I will too, I said. I thought she needed some alone time, so I decided to go back to my house. Before I could leave, though, John ran into the office disheveled. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said. "Late?" I said. "It's 3 o'clock, John. You may as well just not come in." I know, but I found something I thought that you should know. Where's Anna?" He was talking quickly like he was panicked. "She went home early. Spit it out, kid," I said. I didn't really want to hear what he was about to say, but the information could help us stop this guy, so I listened. He killed more than just 3 people. He killed like 100 at least, probably more. He's known all over the world like an old folklore. You know, like how Hansel and Gretel is supposed to be scared, it's about to scare children into being good. I think that's what Stitch is supposed to be. He's got different names all over the place, but they all translate to executioner. Buell means butcher in Dutch, but it's the same difference. I thought this guy sounded familiar. In college, I took a class on mythology and folklore, and we talked about this guy," he said. He kept moving his hands all over the place and could hardly stand still in the doorway of my office. He graduated top of his class at Harvard. I figured that I could trust the things that he was saying. I took feverish notes so that I could call Anna later and tell her everything. "I don't know if this is something we can stop, Ryan," John said, distraught. "Why?" I asked. "He's been at this for who knows how many years. If they have stories about him all over the world, and he's killed all over the world, what makes you think we could stop him here?" "We have to try," I said. "It's our jobs as detectives. We have to stop him from killing any more people. I don't give a damn if he's been at this for however many years." "His rain stops now," I said. "Okay," John said. He took the beanie that he was wearing off his head, twisted it in his hands. "How though?" "I don't know. Do you want to stay over at my place tonight? Maybe we can try and bait him somehow. There's got to be something that we can do," I said. And John sat down next to me and we started researching more. I tried calling Anna while he worked, but she didn't answer. She didn't come into work the next day either.